Hey guys, welcome back to Black Desert. I'm your host Trandis, and today's guide is the Tamer guide. This is probably the guide that's going to take a really long time to make, and it has been, but this has come for a while. I've been playing this class for quite a bit. This is actually my main combat class as of this moment. One thing to quickly note is that the Tamer is probably one of the hardest classes to play in Black Desert, and it's also fairly unpopular probably because it's not exactly easy to play, and also the damage isn't exactly high on the spectrum of all the other classes, but in terms of combo capability, you probably have the biggest combo ever. One of the unique traits of the class is, apart from having a pet, which isn't as unique anymore because of Witch and Wizards, the class can cancel every attack that you have. So every attack that you perform, you can basically cancel out of it. So that basically comes with a big amount of mastery to do with the class. The skill ceiling is probably one of the highest classes out there. But in terms of Tamer, I think it's probably even harder because not only in Awakening form, your attacks have 4 different directional attack inputs that cause different effects, but the class itself is also one squishy. You rely heavily on invuln frames and movement, positioning really quick, and combo canceling. So if you don't know where you are in the middle of your combo, that could be very devastating for yourself, or it could be very devastating for your enemy, depending on which way you go and how well you play the class. The class is really strong once you actually get it down. One of the highlights is that you're very good against 1v1 PvP or like small scale. Definitely not a class that excels in huge scale. In huge scale, you can generally jump into a crowd and you should be able to actually get out, but you're more like chip shots into the crowd rather than actually staying sustained on like classes like other classes. Oh shit, there's so many. I'm going in. I got a kill! I'm just gonna go from the top to the bottom here. Soaring Kick is a grapple. This class has a grapple. In fact, one of the highlights of this class as well is that you have all forms of CC. You have stun, stiffness, knockback, floating, grapple, knockdown, bound. You have all of them, except for freezing, of course. That's exclusive to wizards and witches. But anyways, you have all the CCs at your disposal. So if anybody's running any kind of resistance against you, it's kind of pointless if they run a single one because you have all forms of CC, so it really doesn't matter. So basically, the board is as open as it is. You have all kinds of options. It's just that based on strength of like doing one thing, it's not very focused as well, but it's very focused on 1v1s. This is probably the only class that can probably fight a Berserker 1v1 as well, where you can't get grapple chained. It's mainly because of your pet. Your pet as well throws random CCs when you tell it to attack. Random CCs, I'm serious. It goes between stun, stiffness, knockback, knockdown. I don't think they do floating though, but they cycle between the 4 randomly. And it's pretty funny when a Zerker does like an Undertaker and then the pet scratches them midair and you just both kind of fall. but the Zerker is stunned and you're not. So that's one of the highlights, but you gotta make sure you gotta tell your pet to attack, otherwise you're still screwed. Doesn't matter, you're still fucked if you don't tell it to attack. So Soaring Kick, max out, this is grapple. Evasion, this is also for movement and also short iframes in the beginning. It doesn't last very long. Legendary Beast Charge, this is something that you'll spam a lot. Evasive attack, useless. Tree Climb, ideally, you do want this max, but you do need the skill points. So the class also requires a lot of skill points. I have 1,129 and it's still not enough at 59. Tree Climb is basically, this is like a suicide move in a sense, if you know how to use it properly. This is a very highly advanced technique to use properly. What happens is when you use Tree Climb, you're invincible for the entire animation all the way up until into landing as well. But if you connect your kick with anybody, like if you land on somebody, then the invuln runs out. So in short, if you see like a wizard cast like a meteor in front of you and you tree climb like just into it by accident, you're not gonna die unless you actually land the kick on the wizard. You can dodge like petal blooms, you can dodge wizard bombs, you can dodge sork balls with it. This skill is like, this is for like really advanced So be wary if you want to take this early or not. It's very useful, like just on a clutch like accidental sometimes. But at high skill levels, what you want to do is that you tree climb and then you use the flow into a Heilang scratch. And the Heilang scratch is super armor as well, and it causes stiffness. And the thing about that is if you catch your enemy through tree climb and then you scratch at the end and then they're out of their super armor, you cause stiffness and then you go straight into a grapple or a legendary beast charge to close a distance, and then just grapple and launch the guy and then proc your combo and hope they die. That's a very extreme high technique that even I can't pull off very often. It happens maybe once or twice, but it's very, the satisfaction is just immense when that happens though. Pet, obviously, summon Heilang, get this maxed out. This is basically your passive for the Tamer. She doesn't have an actual passive tree like all the other classes that gives bonus stats. The pet is the bonus stat. Absorb Heilang, this is pretty much your awakening buff, even though it's like pre-awakening. You have another one too. The thing about this is you don't want to cycle this with your awakening buff because they don't stack. I tried it, it does not work. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So you can go 60 seconds of this, and then you can swap to the Berserk in 60 seconds of that. Or 30 seconds, not 60. So 30 seconds, and you get 20 DP, movement speed, very useful, and resistance plus 30, all res. And your pet becomes invincible for 60 seconds, even though that doesn't really do much. Flash, this is a good initiator, is an initial lunge. There are times where I do disable Flash Stance Shift because it drags you backwards a little bit and puts you out of position, which means some of your attacks could miss in the PvP situation. Not all the time, but if you have a poor connection, then I would suggest turning this off. Pull Thrust, you want this because of the DP minus, magic DP minus 15. It hits very hard. Both of these don't have PvP damage reduction, so they do full damage, and they do hit pretty hard. As well, the bleeding lasts freaking forever. It's 36 seconds, and it'll stack with all other forms of bleeding as well. So that's 10 damage, bleeding damage. Bolt Wave and Jolt Wave, you'll use this a lot post-awakening. You won't really use this too much in pre-awakening when you're leveling up, because like I said, you'll just be using the Roaring all the way to max and just burn everything down. Void Lightning is also really good. I don't think they fixed the tooltip. It says movement speed minus 20%. It's actually attack speed, unless they changed it in a recent patch, but I don't think they did. I also don't know if the range has been changed. Previously, when the range was plus 75%, you could actually grapple somebody and then kick them out of you, and then you could go straight into Void Lightning to debuff them for an attack speed. It's great against attack speed classes to debuff them, so you get a higher advantage for a good time, which is 10 seconds. Very, very devastating. And it also serves as a block. You can use this as a net to catch people when you have your pet out. Your pet basically does like a Chaos Red Moon on the spot. You'll see that later, and that basically is like a CC net. You can stand it and feel safe for the moment while it's going, and hopefully somebody just charges you into it and then they get stunned. You switch into your staff, go stun attack, stun them, and then launch them or whatever. Follow through with a combo, hope they die. So there's other tricks around it. That's more of a defense attack. This is more of a defense. This is definitely for PvP. I wouldn't use it for something else. All the flows here on the side. Sprays Scratch, you need if you want this is basically to kind of maneuver midair. And it also, if you have Heilang Scratch on cooldown, you get super armor, right? So then you won't get CC'd mid-dodge because the evasion leap is very short on invincibility frames, even though it doesn't say it. If you get the Scratch at high level, the cooldown goes down to 6 seconds, which is also very good. So again, you need more skill points. Water Slice, this is to do with the grapple and Heilang Claw. This is an uppercut. This is very unreliable. I've tested it with a friend, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, as it shows in the video there. You're supposed to be able to launch the guy and then hit them once, and then the second hit's supposed to juggle them in the air. I have to see if this works on the grapple now too. Oh, I think they might have fixed that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why, and I don't know where about it. Sometimes it could be immunity, sometimes most of the times it says immunity, but then other times I've reliably made it occur like repeatedly, and I feel like it's just a server lag or that could shit on it. Alright, so one of the flows here is the Heilang Scratch. So hitting claw here is the extreme maneuver required for that whole tree climb combo that I was going on about earlier with you tree climb into like a crazy attack or whatever, and then hopefully your invuln based on your timing is really good, and then it goes through the super heavy attack and they'll probably think they landed it on you, and then if you're good enough you use hidden claw, and then you counter right after their attack is over with a Heilang Scratch, and hopefully you cause stiffness on them. If not, then your super armor, and in that short time frame, if you either see that your opponent is CC'd from stiffness, then you go into your combo of either a grapple, which will give you some breathing and thinking room. Otherwise, you go legendary beast charge, so you can just dash out and reposition yourself. So 2 options there. A lot of input, very crazy. It's not something, it takes a lot of practice. And finally, scatter stance here. This is just to bolt wave after a stance shift, so you don't have any delays in between, so you can just, it chains all properly. This isn't exactly fully necessary if you disable stance shift. That's only to make things go faster, but most of the time I go flash into Heilang Claw. Heilang Claw is, well, the other thing with Void Lightning can be chained into Fearful Trembling. If you have this at higher level, this is actually very, very good, because one thing is, if you catch somebody in the CC net while you're channeling Void Lightning, you can directly go straight into Fearful Trembling to cause a stun, and then your opponent will be stunned within that CC net after you channel it long enough, and then the stun will last even longer, and then you go into your other combo, so you can either cause another stiffness with Echo Pierce, or you can try and CC them in a different way. And in essence, your combo and variants go very high, and it's most of the time that it's the combos that will get your opponents killed, and your lockdown on a single target can last anywhere from 10 to 12 seconds just on like facial bashing them or whatever. They basically turn them into a punching bag. That's one of the highlights of playing a Tamer very well. It's very difficult, and you also of course want a lot of ignore resistance for this particular class. Otherwise, most of your hits aren't very strong for like just insta bursts. Awakening skills, Cloud Stomping. When you use this is another invuln technique. When you use it, you launch up, and then if you go left or right, that's like a bit of an air brake, and you can that's also considered an invuln. And if you do that, then it's mostly, I suggest that you use a legendary beast power right away. I just call it the beast charge. So you just use a beast charge right away after the Cloud Stomping to get out. At level 58, you can start flying with it, which is a huge like flying kick. This is great for initiating into a crowd. You're invincible all the way until the hit lands, and when the hit lands, most of the time, if people aren't in super armor, you'll knock them down or whatever, unless they have a lot of knockdown res and it triggers. That's one great initiation, and then you can actually zip out pretty easily. You legendary beast charge right after you land, and then you can use leaf dropping and gust to just sidestep out and just swap between, and then if you quick enough, you can also switch your sword and start bunny hopping out as well. Berserk, this is more of a defense skill. If you use this, you'll be quite a bit more tankier, just because of the all res and the move speed and the DP plus 20. The shitty thing about Rain Curtain is that it takes like 1.5 seconds for it to activate when you guard, and it doesn't channel forever. There's actually like a time frame on it, which is really fucking weird. I don't know what the hell the idea was behind this. The 1.5 second trigger time for the defense buff to activate is also really slow and detrimental. I don't know why all the other classes is like instant, but then the Tamers is really slow. So hopefully that changes later on. I don't know why. I mean, the Warrior, they just tap Q and they get 46 stats, whereas we have to hold it for like a second and a half. It's really odd. Beast Rampage, this is your main assault. There's no super armor or anything. This is a very risky move. Use this when you have your opponent CC'd, and if you need to chain them into a knockdown. Generally, I skill awaken this in so many different ways. You can either give it 10% attack speed, pain damage, or defense plus 20 right now, which is what I have because I just don't like dying really quick. and the better I survive, the longer I can heal myself, because this technique also heals 45 HP every hit, and that's a lot of HP back. And the uppercut shot is like 1000% multiplier, as you can see there. It's one of your hardest hitting attacks. And then when you get flow intimidation, this literally takes the uppercut attack instant from certain techniques that you can just change straight into it. This is a huge basher, so you can do Beast Rampage and then you do Intimidation. They share separate cooldowns for that damage, so you can essentially have about 6000% multiplier with a 50% chance of critical hit on both of them. When you absorb your pet, all your attacks are practically 100% crit, so you don't need too much critical in this class. You need a little bit, but not too much. Garuda is basically if you need to help widen that gap against a tanky target. So if you hit somebody with Garuda and they're stunned or something, or not in super armor, you can launch them as well, and they'll lose 20 magical DP for 10 seconds. And then if you somehow go into Flash Pulse Thrust, I think this stacks as well, so it can go 35. And then if you use Leaves Dropping into a Gust, you can have 16 AP. So your total attack damage gap is about 51 AP on a target, on top of having like plus 10 if you have your pet absorbed and full 100% crit, basically, because this thing gives like 60% crit rate. That's only for like if you have the full gap mass, you basically have about a realistic 6 to 8 seconds to wipe your target out if you're able to tag all of that on in time. Legendary Beast Dance, this is your quadra directional CC assault, basically a massive wall of text. So if you use the Vermilion Bird, that's generally, I use that against targets where I don't know where the fuck they're going, or just like they're moving all over the place, or they're just zipping all over the place, because this is a full 360 attack. It also causes burning, and if you're able to tag somebody with it, they also go flying. It's a floating attack. Black Turtle is another attack that I use a lot. That's basically a ground slam, and then you can go straight into an intimidation with it. I barely ever use the White Tiger attack because for some reason, even though the damage ratios say they're all the same, Azure Dragon hits really weak. The White Tiger hits somewhat weak. The Black Turtle hits really strong, and the Vermilion Bird hits the strongest but takes the slowest, but the Black Turtle is like instantaneous. And also you get like a bunch of buffs for just using it. One of the highest like prompts to get to level 61 is because of this attack in particular, because it gets to a 3-second cooldown. A 3-second cooldown, it's ridiculous. And it also has super armor. So in the time frame of attacks, if you go Beast Charge, which is about like 0.75 seconds to 1 second time frame, and then you go into an Echo Pierce, which is also super armor, and then you go into Legendary Beast Dance, you could potentially cycle in like almost 4 to 6 seconds of super armor time. And also if you use your Leaves Dropping and your Gust properly and swap it and intermittently spam it with Beast Power, you can go super armor, super armor, super armor, invuln, super armor, invuln, super armor, and then super armor again. And then if you target's still not dead, just get out kind of thing. And then you can also go invincible and cloud stomping if you need some breathing time, because this thing lasts pretty freaking long. It's about like 1 to 2 seconds in the sky of invuln. So a lot of your class revolves around that, and it's really hard to keep track of all of that in the heat of combat, especially because it's like a gigantic mindfuck, which is why I like the class, because it's really difficult to play. All around spinner, this is basically like a wipeout skill on targets against the floor. The critical rate, oh, they buffed the critical rate on this, holy shit, it's so much higher now. The critical rate on this basically made this hit a lot harder, but anyways, this attack is a good weapon switcher and also a good wipeout. Generally try to use this on targets that are either launched in the air or on the floor. Never use it when they're on the floor unless you actually need to counter CC somebody. This thing has a frontal guard and it lasts quite a long while. The first few hits cause CC, and then the last hit causes floating. So if your hits like trading somebody with super armor and you're using this, you will probably do minimal damage. They'll do no damage to you if you have enough DP, and then you trade hits. And then finally the uppercut will probably be the finisher, where it launches the guy and you'll still be standing and they'll be on the floor kind of thing. This Echo Pierce, I call this the spike. because it literally is a spike, and it hits once or twice depending on what you want, and it does a lot of damage. It's also a weapon switcher. This is also very good. It's also HP recovery, minimal HP recovery. This thing was revamped recently. I don't know if it was a buff or a nerf. It feels like a miniature nerf if you ask me, because this new skill here, Ultimate Echo Pierce, was added in. It channels all 6 hits to the front instead of 3 to the front and 3 to the back. I personally kept it at 3 to the front and 3 to the back because it's a lot faster. When you use Echo Pierce 6 hits to the front, it's a lot slower. Like the second 3 hits is a lot slower. I don't know if you get super armor during that time. If you get super armor during that time, it's probably more worth it to use it in this fashion then, because having a longer duration on super armor is very helpful for the Tamer, because it just helps your short cooldowns refresh and keep yourself in momentum a lot faster. The class isn't really meant to be a burst class, it's more of like a sustained damage class. You are pretty squishy, so you do have to know how to move around, and that's pretty much a skills overview for this. I know it took really long, but the class is very hard to play, very difficult, and there's lots of things to go about it. Your initiation is Moonlight Strike as well. Moonlight Strike with Full Moon at level 59 is an additional like second Moonlight Strike. If you catch somebody in this in the beginning, just on basic beginning, basically that's the start of a combo if you actually successfully cause a stiffness on them. The other thing is that it causes bleeding. The bleeding is immense. As you can tell, it's 90 damage every 3 seconds for 9 seconds, so that's basically 270 HP loss just from tagging this on somebody. And then if you tag it on them and you're able to also somehow fit a Vermilion Bird partway in there, that's another 60 damage times 3, so it's another 180 HP loss over time. And then if you somehow got the flash in there, that's another 10 times 36, so what is that? That's 12 times, I think. Yeah, 12 ticks, so that's another 120. And if you get pain on there as well from like awakening, as you can tell, there's a fuck ton of dots that you can put on somebody and they'll just bleed out to death too over a period of time. Or even then, if the longer you stay in a fight with somebody, the longer they're gonna drop faster and faster just from cycling dots onto them. That's one of the things on top of hitting them really hard. The class doesn't have very many AoE skills until you reach 60. I haven't really made it to 60 yet. 60, this is like a massive AoE knockdown that follows through with the all-around spinner. And it also has frontal guard, so it's like an extension of a guard and also a giant ground pound into a floor area in front. Ascension, I never really found a use for this. Apparently you can skill awaken this with like air smash or down smash or something. It's rarely ever happens. The skill, I haven't really found much of a use for it to use. It could be good, I don't know, but because of the damage reduced in PvP and I can't really figure out how much it is, it doesn't seem to be very worthwhile. Of course, Heilang Trample, this is also to reduce enemy accuracy and also knockdown. If you can tag this on them, that's also really good. You can use this as a weapon switcher after like a sidestep with the Leaves Gust and the Flow Leaves dropping in staff form. This is quick sword switch if you need it that way. Otherwise, use Jolt Wave and Bolt Wave to switch weapons. Okay, so in terms of combos, this class is a nightmare in terms of combos. So I have my key inputs like right here, and one of the things is just basically just learning a flow of attacks when you're post-awakening. Most of the time when you're pre-awakening, you're just going to be spamming roaring to be basically grinding or whatever. Also summon out your pet. One of the things you want with your pet is that you want to know how to direct your pet into an attack. One of the things I didn't go over in the skills is that roaring actually has a stun on it. If you're able to get your pet causes a stun. You yourself does not cause a stun when you do that skill, which is kind of dumb. So if you want to lock your pet on, make sure your crosshair is on a target and then direct it to attack, and it'll launch the pet at them. Depending on what your opponent's doing, if you tag them with it, your pet can cause a knockback on it. Just launch them in like this. and then use your roaring, and he'll roar over there at this point. You see the immunes coming out, that's basically CC that he's actually processing as well. So you can launch your pet into like enemies. You just need to have the crosshair on them, and then your pet will charge them. You'll actually track them too. So like against Musas and Meiwas, if you actually tag, like lock onto somebody properly, it's kind of hilarious to watch this huge black trail and your dog just chase down this person. It'll go really, really far. It's like a sniper shot. And then if you know they CC'd, then you use your roaring, and then you'll hopefully be able to stun them. And then at that time you charge forward and close the distance. That's a bit hard, and it also leaves you kind of open, so you gotta kind of gauge when and where to use that. You can use that in either weapon, you don't need to switch weapons to do that. So that's one of your uses of your pet. Apart from that, make sure you always use the command to attack anyways after you summon it, because for some reason the AI is really stupid. If you don't tell it to attack, it won't defend you when people attack you. So make sure you always press that, otherwise it's just, he'll just warp beside you when you attack in whatever that. So he'll just like kind of teleport wherever you are and help you assist. But if you don't tell it to command attack, he won't automatically attack these scarecrows like he should, which is what I was talking about to begin with. So you gotta tell him to attack. And you can tell every swipe he makes, every so often, there's an immune that pops up. That's basically a CC assault that comes up. Where is it? Yeah, right there. That's 2 immunes right there. So he does cause random CC from time to time, which is a huge benefit to the class, but still. And then combos. So you sidestep. And sidestep. One of the things is like distance. So I guess chasing people is also probably a difficulty. So you chase in the Moonlight Strike, so you cover a lot of distance. It is problematic because it wastes your initiation, but it does get you close. Yeah, so that's kind of like your movements. The sidestep you can also use it to chase too, but you have to turn your camera a lot really quick. It's probably much faster to run with your sword. You hop a few times and then you beast charge so you don't run out of stamina. Because if you keep hopping forever, you're going to run out of stamina and then people are going to be able to catch you. One of the other tricks is that when you're doing side hops, and there's a bit of a stutter in between. If you do Bolt Wave and Joel Wave together, there's like no delay. You'll also desync the shit out of the server for some reason. That's just because of, I don't know why, it's not an exploit or anything, that's a legit game mechanic to cancel shit. So you do this and you just keep hopping side to side. But it drains your stamina like crazy, but it also desync the fuck out of anybody who's like trying to chase you for some reason. It's probably because like the cancel is so short, and then from the time it communicates with the server to yourself or whatever, it doesn't register fast enough, so the lag in between kind of fucks it over. Unless we were all on fiber optic, then it'd be more accurate, but it's not. So you do that, or you move forward. After a side jump, if you jump forward, there's like no delay in between as well. But if you want to go side to side, that's one way to do it. It's not highly recommended, but it is something to help defend yourself if you need to defend. Because I've seen it before. I know it desyncs is because I'm like hopping around and I'm dueling my friend, and then he's just like attacking where I was previously, and I was like, why is he constantly attack over there? And he's like, I can't hit you anytime I hit you. It's just like, it doesn't, you're like somewhere else. And I was like, that's a bit like the Musa Meiwa chase spam desync as well. So in terms of the safety net with your pet, when you do Void Lightning, you'll do this Chaos Red Moon thing. This is basically a CC if you're using it off cooldown. If you're using it on cooldown, it doesn't do shit. So when you do it this way, you'll notice all these immune popping up instead compared to the last one. So that's, and then like in the midst of that, you can also channel this straight into the Trembling Claw, but it has to be off cooldown again. This is the Fearful Trembling. So you do this, and you slam the floor, and you can either go into that, The other thing is after the jolt waves into the echo pierce, it's shift left click, left mouse, right mouse together. So just make sure you also watch the inputs as this is going, because it's very fucking difficult. And just getting into muscle memory of that is also really weird, and also not very good too. As you'll discover later on, some better combos is not to do this. This is more of a spammable PvE combo. Another combo is you'll get lazy and then you'll end up doing jolt wave, bolt wave. But one thing, if you want to proc flash really quick, then it's one bolt wave and then into flash from the staff. So from the staff you go one, is it bolt wave? Whatever, one of the punches, I'm just gonna call it a punch now. So one of the punches into flash. So it's like boom, and then you can go Phalanx Claw and then straight into the whole spinner. And that's like 7 skills or something right there. I don't even know what the hell I did there. So you go from your staff. If you initiated on somebody, if you're able to land the flash, the thing about flash is that it causes stiffness, but the other thing is your initiation with staff is also stiffness, so it's not worth it to use those back to back because they just won't chain. Never use the same CC twice, that'll screw your combo over. One thing is, so you go bolt wave and then flash, and then why the main reason why disable stance shift is because of that backwards step there, that's stance shift. So if you have Haline Claw and your resistance ignore actually goes through, or your launch or your floating basically goes through, what happens here is that if you're able to tag somebody with flash to begin with, then they get stunned from stiffness. And then what happens after is that if you do a pull thrust, you lunge forward a little bit, so you'll be at your target. And if you disable stance shift, you won't go backwards out of range. And the problem with that is if you use stance shift, Haline Claw is out of range most of the time because it's only a short melee attack in front and barely ever reaches if you use stance shift. So you do stiffness and then you go into Haline Claw, and if you tag them, it'll do a floating, so it'll launch your target. And the second hit should most 90% of the time cause an air smash, so it'll juggle them once in the air. And then if you charge afterwards to close the distance from knocking them away, so legendary beast power, and then you grapple them and launch them again, and then you do bolt wave, jolt wave, or whatever. These are both air attacks. Hitting both of these at air attacks hits as strong as an echo pierce on cooldown. And then by the time that happens, because there's enough time for both of these to go through to hit air attacks, and then you do a swap straight into Echo Pierce, and that's a down attack, so it'll slam them really hard as well. And then afterwards, if you're close to your target, you also Moonlight Strike and Full Moon, which are both on the down attack. Oh god, what a combo. So that's like a really strong wipeout combo because all the percentages are like 800% times 3, all 100% crit throughout. And this is where you use your initiator as more of an execution. So you don't actually use this to initiate. If you can actually somehow initiate with a flash and then you go follow through with that combo, that will devastate somebody pretty hard. Even at low AP, it's just because of all the air attacks that are in between. Is just monstrous if you're able to pull it off. This is why, like, the other thing is why you want Haline Claw, Upward Claw at higher level, but it's hard to land. And there's a reason why there's also that attack range +% on it, is because at higher levels, you might be able to turn stance shift back on without needing that, without needing to worry about the backstab. So this would just be extra damage later on. So that's a really difficult combo. It's basically like this. Or you get, like, I got lazy with Healing Trample because this is also 500 times 3%. And it lowers their accuracy because sometimes I don't think the CC is going to go through. And I can't grapple a Scarecrow to actually show you that, but that's what would be the case. And then you grapple, and that, and then you fall through like that at the end. And then you can probably go into like another combo again. You can literally chain everything repeatedly. So that's one of the combos there, and then of course cloud stomping when you're dodging around the sidestep, and then sometimes you do this. That can actually get you out of some really dangerous situations just on an air break. You don't always have to attack. I barely ever use the cloud stepping just left mouse button from jumping. This ground pound. If somebody's standing like in your vicinity and they're not, they're waiting for you to land because you jumped up. That's actually a nice surprise. There's just a drop the staff on them because that's a miniature AoE in the area and it'll slam them into the floor. That's a knockdown attack, just as a counter. Otherwise, you do want to always spam legendary beast charge. You use this to either get into a situation or to get out, and it's also soup armor, and you have a lot of damage reduction when this is on, even though it's like a 1 second animation time. One of the harder combos, if lag allows, assuming you don't desync or anything, is Moonlight Strike into Azure Dragon, and then afterwards into either Garuda. Hopefully your target launches, and if they don't, then you can also use Beast Rampage to knock them down. So you go Moonlight Strike, Azure Dragon, and then you can either knock them down like that, spike, grab them, launch them again, follow through, and just keep going. So it's basically like your rotation of attacks should be able to be spammed repeatedly. The only thing that you ever have to wait for cooldown is your grapple. But even if you stay on a target long enough, somehow if you're able to manage 10 seconds of combat time with your opponent, you should be able to land another grapple, unless the class is very good at being slippery. So harder classes would be like Musa's and Meiwa's. But if you catch like even those on grapple, then you should be able to execute them quite readily with the right amount of attacks. Or either that slow them. This ground slam also has a slow. If you use this particular attack instead after the initiation, stiffness doesn't last long enough where this attack goes through before it lands, and then you might not knock them down. The other problem with that is if you're able to land the stun instead, the stun lasts so much longer, whereas the knockdown is the end of a combo. So after a knockdown, you have to either grapple or just throw everything you've got at the target and hope they die. Otherwise, you should back off and just wait for some cooldowns, which is very short, because you should disengage for like maybe a few seconds and then come back in right away with Moonlight Strike. Because from this post here all the way to the Scarecrow, you can definitely make it to your target just from Beast Charge and Moonlight Strike like this. So that's the distance that you've got there. It's basically a screen-wide distance in terms of a charge. And that happens basically every 4 seconds is kind of how often you can do that. If not, if your target's also far away and they're zipping around everywhere and you need to snipe them, you can also use Cloud Stomping, which brings you up into the sky. Based on how high you jump is how far your kick goes. So that's also a skill shot in a sense too. So the height of your jump is also determines how far you're gonna go. If you want to launch at the peak of your jump, just hold the right click and you'll basically do the flying kick at the peak of your jump. Otherwise, you can wait a little bit and go half the distance kind of thing or whatever if they're like a little bit closer. It does take a bit of practice, and depending on what you do, it's all situational for that particular technique. So you can either land here, or I could have landed like way over here. So we gotta wait. So I can either land all the way at the far end there. So yeah, distance is like from here to here in terms of range of attack. Obviously you can use that to travel as well on downhill. If you're going uphill, it's not going to make very much distance, but downhill, after some flight time, the game mechanics just makes you stop and then you just plummet, which is kind of dumb. I wish it would just fly all the way through. Other silly things that you can use is riding your pet If you ride your pet off a cliff, there's no fall damage. Your pet will just disappear from absorbing all the damage. When you absorb your pet, though, this is when you have like a lopsided power difference to make up for things that you can't take out or whatever. Somebody's overgeared or whatever, right? So when you absorb your pet, your attacks go much faster. It's basically like insanity speed, and at that point, when you get your combos going through, it's really confusing because you don't know which one's going on combo because you just have to rotate everything. So it's pretty wild. All your cooldowns go really quick. It's hard to keep like 10 skills in rotation properly. The most challenging part is basically rotating the skills on such short cooldown with such a speedy class. The class is probably one of the fastest attacking classes there is too. When you have absorbed pet and you have an alchemy stone of destruction on, and then you've also got like 10% attack speed or whatever from skill awakening buffs, you can attack so fast that the staff leaves the tamer's hand. Like you will spin your attack so fast that the animations actually break, so it looks like the staff is just twirling around her and her hands aren't even holding onto a weapon. It just looks stupid and hilarious. But generally that's when I'm dueling other people, that's when victory almost happens more often than not in small scale PvP. In large scale PvP, it's pretty difficult. If you have a lot of AP, your all-around spinner 100% is only super armor. It no longer has frontal guard, which is really bad. But it does do a lot of damage, and it sends like a horde of pets out in one direction, and it does a lot of damage as well. That's basically your AoE up until level 60. Once you get level 60, you'll have two AoE techniques. Basically your Cloud Ride into a group, and also this all-around soaring strike from all-around spinner. Hopefully this helped you out, guys. This very difficult class. I don't exactly know how to tell you what else to do. It's cycling basically. Oh, also put your Echo Strike on your hotkey here. It says you can use this after particular skills by pressing left mouse, right mouse button, but you can't if you need to use it like right after legendary beast charge. It has to be through quick slot, so you can do that and spike right through. But you can't do that with left mouse, right mouse button in short sword mode. It just doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. So unless you do like other attacks before it. And then this is the tree climb. So when you do tree climb, you're invincible for this entire animation duration here, right here. When it's off cooldown. If it's on cooldown, it does nothing. You just throwing yourself in there for nothing. Yeah. So when it has that blue aura, then you'll know you're invincible. If not, then you're just screwed. Also, the blue aura is basically like an indicator of when your invuln frame's going on and fading off. When you're doing this bunny hop, this is basically forward. And then shift space is your dash. So if you also got to gauge your cooldown on legendary beast charge, which is shift space. So if you press it too early, you end up hopping like an idiot. So you don't want to do that, otherwise you're just going to pause and then you're going to get slammed into the floor. So generally it's about 3 bunny hops before it cools down, just based on the damn server lag. So I always do 3 and then just this. And then if you need to switch into your staff right away, then you just beast charge straight into Echo Spike, and then you go forward. So those are all the tricks and things I know about the Tamer. It's a very hard class, very difficult. Never leaves me bored. This class is insanity. And I hope this helped you out. This howling skill doesn't do anything useful, so don't put points into it. I don't know what the hell is the point of this, apart from like damaging PvE enemies very little. And it's like a super long ass cooldown. Not worth using. I hope they change that into something more useful, but until then there's not much about it. And yeah, those are all the skills, guys. I don't, yeah. Damn, this is like 100 points just to get all the way up to this one right here. That's 1,356% on that one hit.
Bonnie lies over the ocean.
Wow. you completely negated Gravedigger.
Oh, that was I was like, God. Yes, tree climb, help me.